All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to React and Chill. On this channel, there's two things I like to do, and that's, sit on my butt and talk about music that I like. Here I'm doing that, talk about Love Bites. What MIDORI, the guitarist of Love Bites, had to say in this interview here. This interview that I'm referencing will be in the link down below, and it's from February 24th, 2025. There's a few questions in there that really stand out, and one of them is this. The world is currently fascinated by Japanese bands like baby metal, BAND-MAID, and of course, Love Bites. Where do you think this fascination with your country's rock scene comes from? MIDORI responds like this. Now, bear in mind, she probably did not sound like me. I think each band I think each band has a different appeal. But one thing is that, to varying degrees and exclusively Japanese musicality is woven into their songs. As a band, of course, the most important thing is the music. But at the same time, as performers on stage, it's crucial that the overall package is attractive. In Love Bites, we don't put typical Japanese culture and subculture at the forefront, but I do believe the atmosphere we create is different from what people in the West are used to. So let's think about that. Let's think about what she said there. What she said was about culture, right? She was saying that there's an element of culture that's important to it. And while she said they don't necessarily put the Japanese culture or subculture at the forefront, there is an atmosphere with them. I think you could see that. I think you could feel that. And I think that's true for other bands. These bands from Japan that are increasing in popularity here in the West, what's something that they all have in common? They are very distinctly Japanese. And that's a good thing. I mean, they're not trying to be what they're not. Now, they may take musical influences from the West, like Love Bites, for example. Obviously, they're influenced by new wave British heavy metal, and that's noticed in their music, in their play style, and all that. So that's fine. Some Love Bites fans be like, no, they're just Love Bites. They have musical influences. Everyone does. Okay, all right. Anyway, they'll have those influences, and that will be in their music, and they'll like take it up to the extra mile. They'll take it to the next degree. They'll just crank it up to 11 is what I'm saying. Okay. And you could hear their influences. Let's say Miyako, when she does her solos and stuff, there's a lot of, her solos have a lot of references to like classical pieces. Her compositions have a lot of references to classical pieces. Now, is that necessarily a Japanese thing? No, it's not. That's her just being a musical genius, a musical guru, and just putting things together. I guess the Japanese element there would be that whole thing about how Japanese people like to take things to the extra mile. And very focused, very meticulous, right? They just are very focused about performing to the absolute best and won't settle for anything else, right? Anything less. It's a stereotype, but it seems to be true. You could see it time and time again. The Japanese just know how to produce good stuff, quality stuff for sure, right? All right. So you could see it there, but you could also see it like, I think, on stage, like the way they present themselves. It's a very different thing. It's about the show. It's about looking grand. When they're on stage, they're not themselves. They're larger than what they were. There's something else. Like MIDORI on stage is different from MIDORI in person. Same thing with Asami. They even look wildly different. Now, this isn't necessarily unique to Japanese bands, as there's a lot of bands who do this. A notable one would be Slipknot. Do they wear those jumpsuits when they're not playing? I mean, maybe. I don't know, but they become something else when they're on stage. Another one would be like Kiss, all the makeup, or it happens, right? There's like this focus of the show, making the show grand and big and entertaining. I think the Japanese element comes from how they do it. It's just little details of how they do it. With Love Bites, it's a little bit tougher because MIDORI's right here. There's not a lot of like Japanese subculture in Love Bites necessarily at all. But you take other bands like, let's say, BAND-MAID. BAND-MAID is definitely Japanese subculture throughout it. I mean, it's the whole MAID aesthetic is a very Japanese thing. They're very Japanese. Like they definitely look, there's a distinct look about them, and you can trace where it comes from, and it makes sense. You're like, oh, okay. With Love Bites, it's like you see this big show, and you see how everyone else is wearing black and dark colors. We're gonna flip it on its head and wear something different and have like this bold, beautiful, sophisticated look, which has been done by other bands too. Like Aldi has had that, the wearing the dresses and stuff, but it wasn't all white. You know, it wasn't like that. But there was like this kind of glam aspect to it that was very nice. So you could kind of follow that. If you were aware of that, you'd be like, okay, you could say that maybe could be a very Japanese thing as well. I haven't seen it with a lot of Western bands. Correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't noticed any other Western band that wears all dresses all the time when they play. I just have not noticed it. I have not seen it. Now, there might be a singer who wears a dress for like Nightwish or something. I don't know. But it's a whole different, it's a different thing entirely. Okay, what about a band like Hanabie? All right, very much Japanese subculture. It's like in the music, it's in the aesthetic, it's in everything. It's very Japanese. It's very unique. You get that with Baby Metal. I mean, Baby Metal is like it's an idol group with a metal band. It's so different that even describing and be like, oh yeah, Baby Metal is a band. They are. But what do you mean by band? Because that's something that comes up quite a bit, and rightly so, because it's not the same thing as like four people getting together and just, you know, jamming out. It's a very different thing. You know, you have this corporate power that puts together, looks for talent, screens the talent. Hopefully it's a good process, right? And work with the talent, work with them, and have them where they're ready to go and they're singing. And then you have backing tracks, or then later on you get a band to actually back them. So very, very different process. But in the short of it, you can say they're a band. But the whole concept of Baby Metal is very Japanese. It's very Japanese, very distinct. So I like what Midori said here. The culture aspect is very important, and I think people are intrigued by that. They're fascinated by that. It's like, what is this? Now, there are those that don't really care for that culture, don't really care for that look. And now you'll see it with maybe some BAND-MAID, I don't know if fans, but BAND-MAID listeners every now and then might say, what's the deal with the MAID outfits? Or maybe someone listening to Hanabie might be like, what's the deal with this overly cutesy stuff? The same thing with Baby Metal. It's like, some people may want them to assimilate more, to look like the others. I've even heard reactors say something kind of like that. But it's like, no, let them be them. They need to be unique. They need to stand out. Because if you look like everyone else, you're just going to get lost in the weeds, and that's not good for anyone. You want to stand out. That's why you wear those costumes, you put on all the makeup, and have the big show in the first place, so you can stand out. That's what all the other Western bands are doing. Why do you think Slipknot wears all those masks? To stand out. All right? All right. And it's not like it's original. It's been done before. Now, there was another question in this interview that I found was pretty interesting. The question goes, what do you think about the fact that most internationally recognized rock and metal bands from Japan are mostly female-led? And here's Midori's response. She goes, there are many all-female and female-led rock and metal bands in Japan that define the metal scene there. That has greatly helped in bringing forward outstanding musicians within the Japanese scene, especially since the rise of baby metal. More people in Japan's general population have come to enjoy metal music, making it easier for new bands to emerge. Although the global metal scene is still male-dominated, I'm proud that Japan has produced so many high-quality female bands. Okay. Now, Midori, she answers the question, more or less. She's proud that there's a lot of high-quality female bands. She did say that, the Japan's general population here has increased with an appetite of metal, and that definitely helps things there. there is something missing. I think something we're looking for is what's going on over there? How come there's this big bubble of like Japanese women just rocking out, playing metal? It's something we did not see in the West very much. I mean, there were some outliers. There are some bands that chicks in it that are rock and metal and stuff, but there's a lot. There's a lot in Japan. You think about how small Japan is and how many of these bands that are out there just on the scene. It's quite a lot. It's almost as if something's in the water, something's in the air. Maybe it's at the school. I don't know. It's like these girls are being trained how to shred early on. At the age of 5, they're already shredding Metallica solos or Iron Maiden solos or whatever, okay? They're already doing that at the age of 5. maybe that's how they graduate elementary or they enter elementary school. Their equivalent. You have to be able to play Master the Puppets, okay? And then you're allowed. There seems to be something going on there. You know, obviously I'm being silly and over the top, but it's like there's like this every time I show one of these bands to anyone I know in real life, what they usually say is like what are they feeding the ladies over there? What are they feeding them? And do more of it, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So Midori kind of answered, but she didn't reveal the secret sauce. Because you know why? Midori's in on the secret sauce. She's not going to reveal the true secret. The reason why Japan has a lot of all-female metal bands and rock bands. The reason why? Global domination. They're going to dominate the music scene. That's their plan. They know it's going to help. Because not only do the girls sound good, they look good too. That's it. That's the secret. Hey, there's no problem pointing that out. That's just a fact. Hey, they don't get made up and look good for nothing, okay? All right? If it wasn't about the looks, they'll just throw them out there in their everyday pajamas or whatever. But that's not true, right? No. Everyone cares about the looks that they have when they're in the band. Well, maybe the guys not so much, but they have a look that they're going for, you know? And they want to maintain that look. But I found these questions very interesting. I really liked them. I really liked what Midori had to say here. And then there's something else here that she says. There's a question about Japanese rock and metal have a very distinct sound. What do you think sets Japanese music apart from what we're used to in the West? Now, this is a pretty big question. And Midori is asked to answer it, and here she responds. I think there are many reasons in terms of song structure. Most Japanese pop songs have a verse and a pre-chorus before the chorus, and the same applies to rock and metal. In general, Japanese songs tend to have a more complex structures and developments than Western songs. I can hear that. I understand what she's saying there, because the music I grew up listening to, let's say Metallica, Megadeth, stuff like that, there weren't a lot of change-ups in the songs. There, you had the intro, which was a pretty cool riff or something happening. Then you had the verse, okay. Then you had the chorus. And then maybe you have a bridge, but maybe not. You definitely had a solo section. But then some of the earlier songs could be kind of very, very repetitive and a very tight structure that almost seems like, wait, are we back to the beginning of the song? The song just started over? It's like, no, we're at the second verse now. Same song, second verse. What I noticed with, reacting to a lot of Japanese metal and rock is that they do have like these pre-choruses and then a pre-chorus or a post-chorus. It's like, I get so confused with it. I'm like, man, I don't even know what's going on. But I like it. I like what I'm hearing. It's very different. Now, you listen to a lot of Japanese metal, you get accustomed to the pattern to where it's like, oh, okay. It's a pattern that they're used to. It's what they do, and it's very formulaic as well. Okay. But it's right, though. I agree with her there. And then she goes, Midori continues on, she says, when it comes to melodies, we often use a unique scale called the Japanese pentatonic scale, okay, which gives our music a distinct touch. Also, when singing in Japanese, the melody tends to have more detailed movement due to the characteristics of the language. Personally, I think Japanese songs have an emotional impact by using specific chords. I agree with that. The reason why is because having listened to a lot of these bands, reacting to them, I could say they definitely have emotionally impacted me. And I don't understand half the stuff they're saying. And that's a lie. I don't understand anything that they're saying. Okay. All right. But the fact that they can musically and through the cadence of their voice elicit feelings from me, who's pretty much like a robot. My feelings are rage, chill, and crying like a baby. I think you guys seen Rage and Chill, but not Crying Like a Baby. Not yet. Maybe one day you will. Maybe one day. Anyway. Yeah, I liked how Midori answered these questions. I thought they're fun to explore. You guys let me know in the comments section what you thought about it. And, man, if there's anything that's said that you want to chime in on, feel free to. We'll have a civil conversation in the comment section. And with that said, you guys take it easy and have a good one.